Yeah, so I'm not so sure if I really like learning anymore. And actually, I think that I haven't really liked learning for a long time. And yes, that probably sounds pretty hypocritical coming from a person that literally owns a YouTube channel called A Life of Learning, but I really felt like I had to make this video because I know I'm not the only person who started out as an energetic, curious kid who loved learning and is now dealing with gifted kid mental health problems and crippling study anxiety, and who is just trying really hard to stay afloat in the very overwhelming world of academics and I guess just life in general. So yeah, I thought of this video after my most recent mental breakdown, or maybe I should rather say my last period of mental breakdowns. But I got a failing grade for one of my assignments right before the start of midterms. And yes, of course, rationally, I know that failing an assignment is not the biggest issue in the world. Of course, it's not the best thing ever, but I got to hand in a resit and I passed. So in the end, it didn't even really have consequences except for that I had to spend some more time redoing the assignment. However, the fact that rationally speaking, this should not have been such a huge deal did not stop me from going down a huge rabbit hole of self-doubt and fear and anxiety. And I'm going to be honest here, I got this failing grade back on a Friday, and Wednesday was the first day that I did not have a mental breakdown over this. And in hindsight, it just shocked me how something that is so minor compared to actual horrible things that can happen in a person's life could make me feel so miserable. So this experience really made me reflect on why school has the power to fuck so hugely with my mental health, and how this has gotten me to a point where I actually am not really sure anymore whether I really like learning. And although I'm not sure if this video will give you any answers if you are struggling with the same thing, I hope that it can at least give you some insights into your feelings and why you're feeling this way, and maybe make you feel a bit less alone. So I guess you could say that I've always been sort of the stereotypical high-functioning, gifted kid. And I say high-functioning and gifted because I actually really hate those words, but more on that in another video. But I have always been a curious, hardworking student that received really good grades. However, I think that the downside of this is that I never really learned how to deal properly with failure. And if you are an anxious person like me, you probably know that the more unfamiliar something is, the scarier it is as well. So whereas people that fail tests pretty regularly will probably not be too upset by it and just take the resit because that's the only thing that you can do anyways, for me, failure has become this huge, scary thing that I feel I have to avoid at all costs, because I am scared that it will reflect badly on me and that people will not consider me worthy anymore, I guess. But this fear of failure has caused me to constantly feel like I have this sword of Damocles hanging above my head as I am studying, ready to fall down and smash my skull at any moment. And if you are not familiar with the concept of the sword of Damocles or Damocles' sword, it stems from a myth about King Dionysus? I never know how to pronounce these things in English. Who told a guy named Damocles that he could be king for a day to feel what it is like. But he hung a sword above his throne by only one horsehair to make Damocles feel the constant threat that Dionysus is under as a king. And yes, I'm not a king, but I do think this metaphor describes really well how I constantly feel threatened by this idea of potential failure. And although I still love the idea of learning, this constant threat has sort of made me lose the ability to really enjoy it in the moment. I don't sit down with an open mind to see what I can learn today, but I sit down to study because I have to, because otherwise I might fail. And I generally just feel exhausted sometimes from constantly feeling like I have to keep it all up. And although I do consider this belief of feeling like I constantly have to prove myself a false belief, because it's a very black and white way of thinking, I do not necessarily think that it is weird that I developed this belief. I think firstly, on a very personal level, my parents never wanted me to get IQ tested, which in the Netherlands is usually a pretty strong requirement to qualify for the extra challenging gifted kid work. So I constantly had to perform really well in school to prove that I was good enough to deserve this extra work that I actually really needed in order to not feel extremely bored and borderline depressed. But on a larger societal level, you also constantly see that there are these barriers of entry where you have to prove yourself worthy enough. Like in the meritocratic society that we live in, you constantly need to prove that you are good enough to gain entry into higher education, jobs. And although in some way this is all constructed, things like grades or academic achievements do not have any inherent value apart from the value we put on it as a society. This constructed reality does lead to very real consequences. If your grades are too low, this can actually limit your chances of gaining entry to certain academic institutions or certain jobs. And I think that is the reason why I'm really struggling to let go of this false belief, because I also see that in a way there definitely is some sense of truth to it. And I really hate how this has been influencing my ability to enjoy learning, because I did call this channel A Life of Learning because I do think that learning is one of the most valuable and, I guess, beautiful things that a person can do. And I also know that so many people do not get the chance to even go to school, and struggling so much with being able to enjoy learning just makes me feel extremely ungrateful for this privilege that I have that I know so many others don't. And I just hate how these sort of fake constructed things can take so much joy and pleasure out of the things that are actually valuable. But I guess, as I also sort of talked about in my last video, I just have to remember that all the things that really matter in my life would still be there even if I did not have academic success. You know, my boyfriend, my friends, my family, but yeah, some days I just find that really hard, and I just see my whole life crumbling in front of my eyes if I don't do as well as I think I should be doing. And yeah, maybe this very honest video sort of breaks the image that you might have of me of the perfect student that always has their shit together and loves learning and always knows how to deal with everything related to academics. As you can see, I don't, but I actually think in a sense that is a good thing, because I want this channel to help out people that, like me, are struggling to have a healthy relationship to school, and give tips and tricks both for making the studying itself easier as well as for organizing the rest of your life in such a way that you can learn and study in a happy and healthy manner. And I don't think I can help people to achieve this if this is not also something that I have struggled with myself as well. So yeah, that is sort of what I had to say for today's video. It is a bit of a different kind of video than I usually make, but I really hope it sort of resonated with you. I'm really interested to know if this is something that you have also struggled with, and if you have found any ways that helped you to deal with this, because it would help me a lot, and I think other people reading the comments might also be helped by this. If you enjoyed this video or thought that it was helpful, make sure to give it a like so that other people might find it as well. And make sure to share this video with your friends that might also want to watch it. Of course, don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you lots of love and a life of learning, even though I know that it can sometimes be difficult. Pas de soleil, pas de soleil.